Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 121 of So What's Been Happening. It is the 27th of November, Monday night. Quiet Monday night. What else would you be doing but jumping on with us and having a chat to... we've got a very special guest tonight, Cahill Kelly. This guy I've followed for probably around 3 years, I think, around now, roughly. First time I came across Cahill was an even... album launch, actually. It was at the ESPY, and Cahill was a support there in his band, and absolutely blew me away, to be perfectly honest. In the Gershon room, big room, wasn't a heap amount of people right there at the start of the gig, but mate, Cahill, by the end of it, Cahill definitely found some supporters, that's for sure, and what the band was incredible. So we'll talk about that gig and also a few gigs that he's done since in the future. Also an album and a few other bits and pieces, and exciting times for Cahill in amongst new music for the future. So here we go. Let's bring him up. We could talk about him and talk him up forever, but I'm just going to bring him up and have a chat. Here we go. Cahill Kelly, welcome to episode 121, mate, of So What's Been Happening.
Thanks so much for having me, Aaron. Good. This time of year, right? Christmas, New Year's, it's so full on. So yeah, just in the crush of it all at the moment, you know.
Absolutely, it's exciting, but it's also nervous for people that are trying to meet deadlines in amongst Christmas.
Yeah, it's so stressful.
It is, and it's kind of big in the world of music at the moment, as far as, you know, festivals are on. Releases of music, everyone seems to be releasing something at the moment. You've kind of flipped the other way and really going into recording mode, so we'll talk about that shortly. But it's an exciting time to be back involved with music and finally back out playing gigs again. Bear with me a second, we've got a bit of a pause there for some reason. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, we seem to have lost Cahill there. We hopefully we can get him to come back in shortly. Apologies for that. Nothing like a little technical glitch that we'll talk about just as we wait for him to come back in. This t-shirt I'm wearing is by Jeremy Fish, who is this artist based in San Francisco and recently just had an exhibition here curated by Eddie Zammit at On the Corner in Collingwood, screen print exhibition, capturing probably more than 10 years of work, so that was fantastic to see. All right, while we wait for Cahill to come back up, I'm going to play a song of his from when this is kind of when I first came across Cahill, so here we go. It's called World Upon a Shelf.
Somewhere hanging overhead, there's a plane diving through the dust. while Audrey and Ganesha stare back and forth longingly with lust. Behind a dim orange glow of the fading Sol Rock lamp, shadows dance on a Celtic stone from New Zealand, painted by hand. The plastic jagged armor proud to Egyptian tombs for organs and bells. There is a world upon the shelf. You find it if you magnify. Any place else, wooden fans from Indonesia blow a gale of hail across the miniature globe. A graveyard of eyes that sit upon the hill, a dawn out with nobody home. For the ginger wine, cascading candle wax, Conoquips, the Cambodian wizard, puzzle box, panic attack. The week from hell came to stay for a while, turned up one day with a suitcase and a smile for the world upon the shelf.
There you go, World Upon a Shelf. What a great clip. I only recently came across that clip. Been listening to this song for 2 years and only stumbled across a clip not long ago. So we'll talk to Cahill about it. After a little false start, let's bring him back up. Welcome back, Cahill.
Thanks, man. Sorry about that. I have 3 cats in my house, and it's utter chaos sometimes. And one of them just bolted through the studio and unplugged the internet.
That's all right, no problem at all, mate. Great to have you back. All right, let's kick off there. World Upon a Shelf. What a song.
Yeah, sure.
A few meanings, but it's I like kind of the what I've read about the song, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that came together.
Well, that song in particular is probably one of the songs off the record that I don't really remember writing, but I do remember that I was a little stuck, and from time to time, when I am stuck on songwriting, I'll sort of try and implement just writing techniques. And that one was, I had a bookshelf or a mantelpiece at the end of my bed, and it just had a bunch of sort of trinkets and stuff that people had bought me overseas and gifts from friends and, you know, little ornaments and stuff like that you have. And I just tried to see if I could write a song using all these ornaments that I've carted around all my life, and sort of to try and see if I could write some sort of story and narrative just with these inanimate objects. And that's where the track came from.
Yeah, right. It's a great song. I love it. And the clip. Tell us a little bit about the clip, how that came together. It's quite not cryptic, but it's kind of it's quite just captive. You know, it's one of those ones that you just kind of have to keep watching. Well, what's next? What's going to come next? But yeah, tell us a bit about it.
Well, that clip, that was Gil Gilmore that did that. I almost killed him with a deadline for that, and he basically learned how to use this animation software from scratch. And you know, he was up 48 hours at a time with like tequila and just learning how to code this thing. But basically, we sort of used all the items that I wrote from the song and photographed them and uploaded them into this 3D animation software, and then kind of manipulated them and sort of tried to put ourselves in a first-person perspective, walking through like an environment where these items from the song like kind of just like moving around, and you know, yeah, we just tried to use the actual items from the song and photograph them and use multiple medias to come up with something interesting.
Yeah, well, I think it come up great, and shout out to Gil Gilmore as well. He's done a few things for you, including this great picture that sits behind this backdrop at the moment. It's a great little shoot that you use for some of your promo.
Yeah,
dynamic angle, but a little bit going back a little bit, that shot with the longer locks.
Yeah, I after a couple of years of tour and having the long hair, about early in March, I just shaved my head for the first time as an adult. I felt this like really inkling to do it. It was a really good reset. But yeah, I do miss the hair.
And speaking of the hair, this was the first time I saw you. I think I was just mentioning this before we got cut off. This gig down at the Espy, where even it was an album launch for them as well. Reverse Light Years, I think it was. Fantastic to be on the bill. Obviously playing before even. Here's a shot of the band back in the day, going back 3 or so years, roughly. This one, The Long Lost. Yeah, it blew me away. To be perfectly honest, that gig, and I do remember coming up to you and say, mate, you've won a few fans tonight for sure. So that was roughly around the time you'd launched the album, from memory.
Like maybe a month or two afterwards. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. All right, let's flick back a little bit to you, kind of first memories of music growing up as a young kid. Kind of where were you that you kind of really remember? Your kind of first memories, and where did you kind of grow up?
So I didn't come from a very musical family. My parents had great music collection and stuff like that, and they used to play music around the house. And I think that's where I got a lot of my songwriting sort of taste from, because they loved Tom Petty, Crowded House, and a lot of Dylan and Paul Kelly. So, they used to listen to a lot of that stuff, but no one in my family really played, or to be honest, when I wanted to buy my first guitar, my parents were like, no way. They really didn't, they didn't want me to get into it. But I had a music teacher in a tiny country town that I lived in WA, which was called Quarrama. And I went to school there for a little bit, and there was this music teacher called Mr. Morrison. And, he was had a long black ponytail and like John Lennon shades, and he used to play the sax. And I was probably in grade 3 or 4, and I just thought he was really cool. He used to show us film clips during our lessons, instead of just, xylophone, 3 Black Sheep. He'd be like, here's a Red Hot Chili Peppers film clip, and sort of educated us a bit about bands more than just traditional music from a young age. So he was always really influential for me. I always remember Mr. Morrison,
Yeah, that's a great way that someone's been able to do that a bit differently to what's normal, I guess, in respect of music. A lot of music teachers growing up as kids, you just get the traditional roll out. So it was good.
Recorder.
Basically recorder, or if you're lucky, guitar. The recorder kind of ends up in the bin, and for a lot of people, guitar does as well. But what was the first instrument? Was it guitar for you? And when did you kind of get your first guitar in the end?
So I actually started on the bass for many, many years, probably like 5 or 6 years. I would have started when I was about 14 or something like that. And yeah, it was just through a friend. He already played guitar, like classic high school story. He already played guitar. He'd had a few years ahead of me. He was like, you buy a bass, we'll start a band. And I think since then I just had the bug. Since I was 15, 14, I've been playing. Moved on to guitar about 6 or 7 years later.
Right. And first memories of kind of writing music, or was it kind of poetry for you, or stories? How did you kind of kick off your musical journey?
Well, it's kind of funny because I played the bass for so many years. Someone left a guitar at my house one day. And I remember starting to try and play chords on the bass and sing along with it and stuff like that, Someone left a guitar at my house, and that night I just wrote something on it. And that pretty much since then I've had the bug. From the very first day I had a guitar and wrote something, I've kind of been doing it since then.
Yep. And what was the outlet initially for you when you go through a writing process? Was it kind of journal style, like writing, or was it kind of more writing a story? Like what was it initially, and then we'll talk about kind of what it's been into the future as you've developed as an artist. But what was it initially when you kind of put your thoughts down and kind of create that into a song?
I think originally it was more just therapeutic.
Yeah.
Getting stuff off your chest and teenage angst. and girls. It probably started as something quite shallow, or just therapy. And with time, it's matured, and you run out of that sort of energy to write with. You start looking in other avenues, narratives, and I guess it started as therapy, probably.
Yeah, sure. And when was the move to you? When did you move to Melbourne?
2012.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. From Townsville.
Yeah. And why? Can I ask why? How did you end up in Melbourne? Out of all the places down the eastern seaboard.
Well, definitely to pursue music.
Yeah.
I was in a band at the time called the Broken Needles up in Townsville. And we had a bit of the traction going with the record that we recorded ourselves. And so we thought, move to the big smoke and give it a red hot crack.
Yeah. And how'd it go?
That band probably lasted like a year and a half or something. Probably as most people find happens, when you move to a big city, it's pretty intimidating. But I was the guy to make the move. It's opened me up to meeting so many amazing musicians and working with some incredible people. And I'm so glad to make the move.
Yeah, perfect. All right, well, let's talk about Incredible. This song is one of my absolute favourites. I've mentioned it to you a couple of times, but interesting enough, I went back to that Espy gig and I looked at what footage did I take of that gig, and it was exactly the same song. So after 3 years, you still hit me right in the sweet spot with Maybe I.
Thanks.
So I'm going to play a little bit of that Maybe I. There you go, mate. It doesn't. That song doesn't start out like that, as far as that rocky, but once it gets up and going, it's a great song, mate. Fantastic, man. What a lineup you've put together, and it's been pretty strong for a couple of years. Tell us about these band members. They're not just band members; they're incredible musos themselves. So just tell us a little bit about the band you've got currently, and I know you've got a fairly new addition as well. So just give us a run through of the band.
Yeah, sure. The biggest, or probably the longest member, Lain Pocock, who is the bass player. He helps craft the sound of the song a lot. So I've been working with him. I was 23 now, 10, 12 years.
Yep.
So he's a very integral part of my sound. His bass playing. Lain Pocock is bass. Equal to him, Andrew Braden, the drummer. I've been working with him for the same amount of time. They're just such a great rhythm section. They're really satisfying to work with. They're great guys. They're one of my best friends. And then we've got Oscar Herbig from Skyscraper Stand. Some people might know him from, he's a great friend of mine as well. Look, they're all just my family. And I've been working with them for a really long time. I find it really uncomfortable to play with people I don't know super well. It's more of a family affair for me,
Yep.
But yeah, we had a band called Willow Darling over years before I started this Cahill Kelly sort of project.
Yeah, okay. And one thing that comes across is exactly that family or best mates approach. I can just tell that chemistry and that magic and that fun is there at every one of your gigs, especially that one at Shot Kickers. That was an incredible gig.
Well, that was the first we did with our new member, Danny O'Keefe.
Yep.
And he's been a great addition to have that second guitar player, and then I can step back onto the keys, a little less swapping back and forth. Been really able to heighten a lot with him as an addition.
Yep. Yeah, and incredible addition he is too, and some harmonies in there too. He's the package, full package for sure. Like the whole band is. Congratulations on assembling such a great group.
I'm very lucky to have them guys involved.
Absolutely. And the keys for you. When did the keys kind of move into your world and become part of your repertoire?
I always played a little bit of keys, but I never spent too much time figuring it out. Or I never considered myself a player, and I probably still wouldn't, to be honest. But I've just always dabbled. And then when I did the album, maybe I and a lot of the keys-based songs to be some of the favorites of fans and were listening to the record. So I just thought maybe I'd make that transition for the time being. And it's also great for songwriting approach.
Yeah.
You get so used to playing the guitar and the shapes and the chords and the voice. Sometimes you can get a little stuck. Just even simply swapping another instrument, can bring out so much.
Yeah, I can tell in that playing you've got a beautiful feel. It doesn't necessarily need to be, absolute by the note, but I can tell you what you are is one of those guys that just you can feel it in the way you play, and I think. That's a great muso to me. I'm not musically a player or anything, but I just as a punter and gigs get to plenty of gigs, and friends of ours do the same. Definitely, second you hit the keys or you hit the guitar, there's something kind of special that comes through that. So, long may it continue, Carl.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that album. In particular, let's just bring up the cover here. So bear with me 1 second.
Another Gil Gilmore.
Yeah, it's a really cool pick actually. Talk us through this one for the album here, Classical and Cool Jazz.
Okay, so that started off this like black and white shot that we did like a portrait. And it was a very experimental artist, and when I get him to do things, or come to him, I want an album cover. Whatever it starts as is so far removed from what it ends up as. So we took a black and white shot. I think he printed it out and then cut it out multiple times, folded it, photographed it, scanned it, photographed it again, cut it out. So it was just a layering, I guess, to some degree, of like constantly printing and reshooting this image. And it was almost like a 3-dimensional piece of paper that he ended up having, like a puzzle piece. And I don't know, I love it. It's really quirky, and it changed so many times before the final product.
Yeah, I suppose that's an interesting one. Bear with me, we've just got a couple of audio bouncing back a little bit. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, let's we'll keep continuing. Hopefully that little gremlin goes away.
The ghost.
Yeah, absolutely. We had technically planned to play a couple of songs live, but we're going to do that in the future.
I know, I'm so sorry. I've been technologically just all over the place today.
That's okay. It happens. It's kind of one of those little gremlins that then sneaks into the show somewhere along the line. But that's the magic of doing this way. So hopefully it doesn't continue. If anyone can give us a kind of feedback on how that's rolling. All right, let's go back to sorry, what we were staying on this particular album. Let's talk about the recording process for you. How long did this album take, and what was kind of the first song that was kind of considered finished and in the can?
Oh, that's a good question, to be honest. That was a long time ago. So the first song, I actually think it might have been Steve Collins would know. Steve Collins was the guy that produced and recorded the record.
Yep.
I honestly don't know which song we did first. It was kind of a bit of a blur, right? Because we did it in lockdown at home. So the reason the whole album sort of came about was just out of sheer boredom. You know, we had a very limited setup at home, and I wouldn't say it was a studio by any means. But Steve, you know, in the depths of lockdown, he would come and knock on my door and be like, "Come on, let's record an album. Like, I need something to do." You know, he's a very active guy. So he was just going insane with boredom. So he used to force me to come in and record these songs. And, you know, after like 2 or 3 of them, we started to have a body of work. And then it just kind of built from there and snowballed. And it really wasn't, we never set out to record an album, or I never designed for it to be my debut album or anything like that. It's quite funny how it ended up, being the record that it is. But because we just recorded it at home, it was very limited. We couldn't get anyone over, obviously, because of the curfews and the lockdowns and whatnot. I think we had like VB boxes taped up on the windows to like help with the sound, and whatever we had laying around, we just kind of made a record with. It was just convenient that I lived with Lain Pocock, my longtime collaborator, the bass player, and Steve, who's we call him the celebrity sound guy around town. He's a well-known sound engineer in Melbourne here. And he used to play a bit of drums back in the day. So I had a band just there ready to go. So it was really just a way for us to get through that time. And then it ended up becoming something that we were quite proud of and happy to release, you know?
Yeah. Well, shout out to Steve Collins. You're absolutely right. He's definitely one of the best sound guys around if you can get him for one of your gigs. And there's even a Steve Collins Appreciation Society, mate, in case you didn't know. But
I think I did know about this.
But there you go. Shout
Put
out
me
to
at the top of the list.
Yeah, there's a few that want to jump on. So absolutely. All right. So 10 tracks that album ended up being. It's a great album. There's very, very little ever that I ever kind of skip through, mate. I don't normally get a chance to listen to a full album, I must admit. And that's kind of the way it is for a lot of people, I guess. Skip through, play a few songs, or get to only hear a couple of songs. But you're a real start to finish guy for me. So that's a testament to how good this album is. I don't always go on my own taste, but I know after 3 years, mate, it's still on my go-to playlist. And I'm always one that's telling new people about Cahill Kelly. And if you're ever at a gig, or I'm at a gig and Cahill's playing somewhere, I'll try and do everything I can to try and get there. So just while we're talking about gigs, we must promote, obviously, this super lineup for the 2nd of December at Northcote Social Club. The pic behind me is actually on the wall at Northcote Social Club there. So there you go. But tell us a bit about this lineup, mate. Supporting Fen Wilson with Zoe Fox and yourself as well. Equally could all be headliners and are headliners around Melbourne. Must be great to play with Fen's kind of welcome back show.
Oh yeah, I love Fen so much, and Zoe as well. I've never actually got to play with Zoe, so I'm really hyped to be on the same bill with Zoe too. But that sort of came about. I met recently, only just got to know Fen in the last I'd say year and a half, just through playing similar festivals. We spent a bit of time together in Brisbane in Big Sound, I believe it is, and just running into each other over the years. But yeah, I'm such a fan of his songs, and we've played a show with him in the past. It was heaps of fun. So I absolutely love his band and love Zoe. So it's got, to be a really good night and like a great way to send the year out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to set up December. 2nd of December, Saturday night is when you're looking. I'm sure tickets are selling and selling well, so make sure you jump on and check that out. We'll put a link down in the comments a little bit later, and you can make sure you jump on that one. I'll be honest with you, sadly, it's probably one of the only gigs I'm going to miss of yours, Cahill. I did have 2 tickets booked, and I've given those away to 2 of my good friends. So I've been dragged to something else, but it's worth being dragged for. So I just can't say what it is because it's a surprise for someone else. So there you go. So I do apologise in advance, Cahill, for not saying.
Well, thanks for passing them on. You'll be there in spirit through your friends.
Absolutely. They always tell us about the gigs you're not at, which is kind of cool because we've got a good circle and friendship group that always are talking about gigs, and we get to multiple gigs over weeks and weekends. But I can tell you, whether you're headlining or playing first, I think I mentioned to it Shock Kickers, and I didn't actually stay for Skyscraper Stand for that gig, but we actually came to see you only, to be honest, Cahill, and we're off to another gig. So, that's we see a lot of music, but having great talent. I know you're a humble kind of guy, Cahill, but it's a great album, and you perform amazingly live. So look forward to that 2nd of December gig for a lot of people.
Oh, thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk about new music and what's kind of coming up. What's in the vault for Cahill Kelly for 24?
So I'm currently in between 2 records at the moment. So I'm actually working on 2 at the same time, both pretty contrasting sounds, but that's pretty much been the main focus of the last half of this year. It's been just chipping away at them pretty much. So I would consider classical and cool jazz quite an eclectic bunch of sounds. And I really like the idea of kind of magnifying some of those specific sounds and exploring them in full records. So I've taken like one element of classical and cool jazz, which I would say is probably the Maybe I element, and that sort of lineup. So very heavily piano based, but this time we're doing it at Paul Mabry's studio in Fairfield. So Paul Mabry from Rocket Science. He's got a fantastic studio over there. But so we'll pretty much, I'm about halfway through that one, and I've got another one which is a bit left of field for me and quite experimental. It's a lot more analog synths and drum machines and stuff like that, where I'm actually doing that one in this room we're in right now, which is my housemate's studio, Morris Studio. So we're doing a lot of work out of here at home as well.
Yeah. And how does that go when you're, well, I suppose it's a very different concept to a lot of people that are used to that nut down and kind of nail one sound for one particular album. But does that kind of give you a release to work on something else and come back to what you're doing? Is that kind of the approach?
Yeah, well, I just find I'm just all over the shop with my writing, like if I go out and watch a metal band, I'll go home and I'll try and write a metal song. Like I'm just such a spongy person. Yeah. And so I think the idea is just to sort of wrangle my head in a little bit more and hyper focus on one style and explore it for an album's worth of material, and then shift it up and mix things up a little, But I think there will be some pretty similar themes to classical and cool jazz. It's not going to be too far removed, but just more mature songwriting. I mean, at least I'd like to hope so. We'll see how it turns out, You never know.
Yeah. Well, as I said, you set a pretty high standard with that album, but it wasn't your first release. Let's face it, you'd done a couple of things before that as well. So, and I know one of them here. Talk to me about this album cover as well. It's cool for the EP.
Yeah, that so there's a guy that lives out in Castlemaine, and his name is Cal Skimmin. And Cal does a lot of, at this period of time, and still does. He was experimenting with a lot of like VHS synthesizers, so like video synths. And so I think he was projecting old Like I gave him this image of this grotto that was across the road from my house. My fiance took the picture, and he actually played it through an old television and then manipulates sort of all these colors that you can see with a video synthesizer. And yeah, I was just really into it. I think at the time I'd never really seen anything like that before. I didn't know there were synthesizers for, you know, visual, like imaging and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And he's just a really good friend of mine.
Yeah. How important, just touching on that, I played part of World Upon a Shelf, as we touched on before, but how important to you is kind of the ability to put a clip together and a visual component for, you know, the upcoming couple of releases? In your mind?
Yeah, it is. I think it's very, very important. In terms of like film clips and stuff like that, I really lack that sort of imagination. I got to be honest. I mean, in terms of artwork and stuff like that, I am really quite obsessive with how stuff looks aesthetically, covers, and, you know, the film clips themselves. I don't, my brain just doesn't go there with ideas. So it's something that I need to explore a little bit more. And luckily I have Gil on board, you know, as someone that I can always turn to for ideas like that. So yeah, with the new album coming out, hopefully kind of mid next year, there'll also be some accompanying videos, but we really want to try and one up what we've done in the past, you know?
Yeah, well, you've set a high bar for not only your album, but also Gil Gilmore's quality work. That we've given you 6 months, Gil, to put this one together.
It's a lot more than he had the first time.
That's a lot of tequila.
Mezcal.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fun. And just influences. I know we touched on a couple that you were early influences. Kind of some of your current influences that you're kind of listening to at the moment, and they may be current bands that are out there and doing the scenes in Melbourne, but also, you know, what have you found yourself globally, kind of after lockdown, I guess? What are you kind of listening to at the moment?
At the moment, I can't stop listening to Madison Cunningham. She's a singer-songwriter. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No,
she's
I'm not.
a singer-songwriter, guitar player from the States, I believe. But she's quite young, and she's just painfully talented, an amazing, unique sort of guitar player in her own right, and amazing lyricist, and just a machine, annoyingly good. So yeah, I've been. She's got an album called The Revealer, I believe, that came out maybe last year, late last year, or even maybe early this year. But I've been really obsessed with that record. It's a great record. Okay,
well there you go. What's kind of your must do on your playlist? Have you got something that kind of takes you know, maybe pre-gig or the day of the gig? What do you kind of listen to?
I mean, I would say a Beatles is just such a fallback for me. I'm such a Beatles nerd and like a Beatles head, and it's something that has always kind of been there from when I was really young to now. Other than that, I'm so all over the place when it comes to music. You know, I'll spend a month listening to like Hawaiian ukulele, and then the next month will be, you know, some like country music, or I'm a bit all over the place. But I would say the Beatles are just kind of always there for me. They're always like a standard.
Yeah, well, not a bad place to
No.
let your ears listen to, for sure. Just on that, what's your thoughts on the final song that released by the Now and Then by the Beatles?
I actually quite liked it, to be honest. Yeah, I actually thought it was a great track. The film clip, sorry, this is the cat that cut the internet off. I thought the film clip was really unusual. I don't know how I felt about that, but the song itself I thought was beautiful, and it was really cool to hear Lennon sing again, you know, to hear a new Lennon song. It was quite refreshing to hear his voice.
Yeah, definitely. was great. I was a big fan, and a lot of people are. It's kind of had mixed reviews, I guess, but I think some people can be a little bit critical, too critical, to be honest, given the way it was kind of compiled and everything. I think it's still some absolute Beatles magic for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, your favourite Australian artist? You listen to a lot of music. I know we're going to put you on the spot, obviously, but just give us one. And it might be someone that is a young kind of up-and-coming artist that's doing the scenes locally. Who are you going to give a big shout-out to?
Oh, God, this is so hard. You've really put me on the spot here. The first thing that comes to my mind, honestly, is there's a band called Turtle Skull, who's good friends of ours. I'm sure there's someone that I'm just completely blanking on right now, but I would say the first thing that comes to mind is, good mates of mine they're Sydney-based, I believe. They're sort of like a psychedelic doom band on that progressive sort of side of things.
Yeah.
But their sonic control is just incredible. The way that they play live, it just sounds immaculately like their record, but in a really good way. You know, they just crafted their sounds so well, and they're absolute legends. It's sort of like it's like a Black Sabbath, but with really delicate harmonies the whole time.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I would really recommend checking them out. Like the record, but if you see them in town, go and see them because they're just ridiculously good live band.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful. And how, do you change up a few things in comparison to how it records to how you play it live? And do you do slightly different versions with timings, changes, and things like that? What's your kind of approach there in relation to live?
So I mean, we tend to play the forms pretty similar, but I'm a big fan of letting the band sort of just go for what they want to, I think if you choose particular people to play with you, it's sort of, there's no point in like dictating how they play. Otherwise you could have just got anyone. So I think like within some sort of form, there's obviously key elements that need to be there every time. But I do like to stretch things, and we definitely have some fun with it and change stuff up on the fly. I think some of us tend to stick more to it and others, go off and do their own thing. But I like the freedom, and I think that's part of what makes live music great, is that it doesn't sound like the record, it's all the embellishes and the mistakes and the parts that you kind of journey off on. So yeah, I mean, there's some songs that it's like just play the song because it sounds good, but there's plenty of other stuff where I think being able to explore is really important.
Yeah, and how different is it in different venues with different sound setups? And each night I've ever seen you, like all bands, it kind of feels a little bit different every night depending on the stage and maybe who's headlining or supporting, and even the crowd that's kind of there. Is there a venue in particular that you kind of really love to play at or want to play at, most importantly?
I would love to play the Forum. That's kind of one I haven't done yet, and it's just it's such a beautiful venue. I'd say like every venue has its pros and cons, really. I mean, sometimes playing on the floor at the Labor is like better than being at the recital center, or it's different. And I'm someone that I'm quite fussy about sound, so a lot of the time I do struggle with live performance. I am a real studio person. I love that part of the craft. I really like making records and being in an environment where you can meticulously control every little element. I'm definitely a bit more like that. When we play live, I have to let go a little bit of the reins, because there's going to be things that you just can't really, frequencies of the room or whatever it is, or, your amps just sounds crap in this room or something. But, I mean, in terms of the classic Melbourne venues, like the Old Bar is just, for a small room. It has such a great sounding stage, you know.
Yeah, it's
But
really
yeah,
cool.
shout out to the Labour in Vain as well. I love playing at that place.
Yeah, just saw Andre Wurst there last week or so. So that was a great.
Spewing, I missed that gig.
Yeah, it was great, fantastic. All right, here I just want to talk about this picture because this really sparked my attention. I saw it a long time ago, and I have been meaning to ask you about it. It's a killer, mate. Tell us a little bit about how this came together.
Well, that was kind of one of the ideas for the album artwork for the cover before it sort of came together. And again, it's just because we were just stuck inside. It's just our backyard. It's just everything kind of like vaguely interesting in our house. We just dragged out, kind of took the photos. I don't know if I mentioned that we also lived with Gil, so it was me, Stive, Collins, Gil, and Lain, and my partner, all kind of, you know, locked into this little place for half the year. So
pretty talented household.
Yeah, it was just, you know, I feel very lucky that I had those guys around, and we kind of worked on projects like that, and I guess that got us through it. But yeah, that was just heaps of fun. I think, you know, being a big Beatles fan, like those Sgt. Pepper's album cover, or those big covers where there's heaps to look at, I'm always a big fan of. We didn't end up using it, but you know, I do love that photo. It's great.
Yeah, I think it definitely deserves to be dragged out back at some point. Lain Pocock, that's a killer shot.
It's so obnoxious.
Yeah, it's perfect. It deserves a place somewhere, even on a gig poster. Who knows? It's got to obviously fit the bill, right? But let's talk about tours. And I know you've been in and around various places, and also performing with Grace Cummings as well. Talk to me a little bit about once you can get to a venue and a stage with an incredible setup like this, and just that feel of a big crowd. Obviously, Music Bowl would be obviously one on the agenda for you in the future. Obviously, the Forum, you know, is a pretty big place, but a different style of venue. What's that magic like to walk out there and in front of that many people and do your thing and get a great reaction too?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty intimidating, I think, the first few times you do it. Yep. But it becomes normalized really quickly, I think. I've been playing gigs for so long of varying degrees, you know, like playing to the sound person exclusively, and then to thousands of people. And that has, you know, fluctuated and peaks and troughs over the years. But I think, yeah, some of those bigger shows in Europe, it's just, I don't know, the more people there are, there's just so much energy coming back at you. It's really easy I find it easier to perform when there hits a certain amount of people. It sort of doesn't really matter anymore, you know, past, you know, I don't know what the number is, but past a certain amount of people, they just sort of become a crowd, you know, a nondescript crowd. And there's just so much energy. So I just find it a lot easier to perform with a bigger crowd. I mean, I know there's probably a similar, you know, experience for a lot of musicians, but I don't really get stage fright or anything like that. So it just is really exciting. And yeah, you just try and be in the moment and be grateful for the time and the experience on the stage, and for the people that have come to watch, you know?
Yeah. And sitting back a stage in the green room, ready to roll, with the writer, obviously ready to go. What's kind of your pre-gig routine, kind of as the main man too, the people that really, honestly, that a lot of pundits come to see as the front man in your band? Have you got kind of a bit of a must do or a ritual you kind of do?
It's like
nothing crazy.
It's like two pots and a shot of tequila, something like that.
No,
I actually I just like hanging out. If I sit by myself or do something like that, I start to overthink things. So the best I've found for me, the best thing is just to be out the front drinking or having a cigarette or whatever, having a convo, and then at least just a couple of minutes before you get on, just to and then you're good to go. But if I start to overthink things or plan out like little rituals or anything like that, I think I get too in my head, and that's maybe when the stage frights starts creeping in, you know.
Yeah, when I came up and spoke to you last time was at Shock Kickers, and it was kind of only really moments before you were ready to go back and jump up on stage. But you were punching out the set list at the time. Is that something you do not long before gigs? Every band kind of has a bit of a different approach. Sometimes they have a standard set list they roll with and add a couple of extras. Some bands like to literally put it down, minutes or moments before they roll out there. So is that something you do normally? What's your approach there?
I'm kind of a bit of a nightmare when it comes to that. I think for other band, probably. I don't. I tend to just forget to do it at all.
Yeah, right.
And usually just kind of like yell it out to the guys or like suggest stuff on stage. Although like we've got the handful of songs at the moment that we're quite comfortable with and we know work. But yeah, I've got a real bad habit of just like reading it off my phone. The guys are usually pretty surprised when I have like the A4 with the, everyone's got a set list and stuff like that. Yeah. So we do leave it pretty last minute, and we do change it quite a bit on the spot as well.
Yeah. And do you have a go-to first song that you play? Like some bands do, some don't. What's your situation?
I wouldn't say like a go-to first. I mean, we definitely have go-to finishes. Yeah. Sometimes Tone of Reserve tends to pop up quite a bit as an opening track, I think because it opens the record, which is a bit of a frustrating one because it just starts with vocals and you never know how to pitch it, So I don't know why we choose that one, but it's I don't think we necessarily have like a starting song, just something that gets people, up and going and kicks off with a bit of a bang.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're gonna finish shortly, but I just want to obviously give the 2nd of December gig another quick chat. This will be great. So make sure you jump on and get this. Fen Wilson, just recently back with his brother George from overseas on a crazy tour, and the great part is supported by Cahill Kelly and Zoe Fox as well. We just had Zoe on the show not long ago, and so shout out to Fen Wilson. We've been chasing you for some time, buddy. We need to get you on this. I'm sure George will be in your ear, and
I'll twist his arm.
We need to talk about this new stuff you're working on, mate. I heard a fantastic interview with Fen just this afternoon with Phoebe Squared. So there you go. But most importantly, Cahill, enjoy the night. Enjoy playing again. Enjoy playing around good friends. I know that's kind of a bit of a loosener up pre-Christmas for you. Look forward to hearing and seeing you into 2024, and all the best for Christmas, most importantly.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Aaron. I really appreciate that. And
no worries.
I'll catch you around.
Absolutely. We're going to finish on the last question for you. It's a bit of a curly one, but it's the standard dinner table question of you're having a dinner party and you and 5 other guests are invited to this table for dinner and a chat and a beer or a smoke, whatever you want to have. And they can be living or dead, and they can be at any person you could come up with. So it's a pretty loose brief, but I need your 5.
Need my 5. Okay. I mean, Charles Darwin would probably be a pretty interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah.
That'd be some good dinner conversation.
Yeah.
Who else we got? I mean, I'd love to meet John Lennon.
Yep. Well, we'll throw the Beatles in. We'll give the whole Beatles in.
Yeah, I mean, he'd probably be a terrible guest, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Who else? Nels Klein, guitarist from Wilco. I just want to pick his ear and figure out how he plays his guitar.
Yeah.
Who else? The producer, the Danger Mouse.
Right.
Yeah, I want to know how that guy does his thing. And let's throw a curveball in there. Who would be the last one? God, you really put me on the spot here. let's just go with the rock. You know, why not?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Curveball in there. Yeah, absolutely shake the party up for sure. All right, Carl, you've been awesome with your time, mate. We look forward to having you on again, maybe into the new year, when we can hook up some audio and we could talk about maybe, you know, into the middle of next year and hopefully before. But please, anytime you've got a gig, shoot us the details and we'll help do everything we can to keep that conversation rolling with Cahill Kelly. So thanks for joining us, mate. Have a great week and we'll see you out there to gig soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Always welcome, mate. How good was that to have a chat to Cahill Kelly? And I'd like to thank so many artists that have been incredibly generous with their time on So What's Been Happening. Here's a bit of a short list. It's a great list, to be honest, and I must admit it's been really fun having these chats. This wasn't supposed to go past episode 1, as I mentioned to a few people. There was literally a lockdown chat online, and the music industry got smashed as well as a lot of other industries, and it's been fantastic to have so many friends jump on and have a chat, and we've introduced a way through so many other people, and we look forward to just doing this now as a chat to catch up with some artists people don't know, but also most importantly pick their brain a little bit about what makes them tick and find out what the process really is for them in relation to music. So look forward to seeing you guys out there at a gig soon. Make sure December 2 is your spot, Northcote Social Club. Go and see Fen Wilson, Cahill Kelly and Zoe Fox. Get out there. See you soon. Have a great week.